Hey, welcome to the Backyard Professor Live. I have got a spectacular guest tonight, and we are talking about one of the most intriguing subjects I have ever run across. The downside of this is I'm going to demonstrate how far behind I am on all of this kind of stuff. I am behind in every subject of study in the world, but I'm pedaling as fast as I can go. The characters that Joseph Smith copied down off of the gold plates, and we used to see it on the covers of those old Book of Mormon, the paperback Book of Mormons back in the 1970s when they made a big deal about it. They had too many hundreds of millions of extra copies of the Book of Mormon that nobody wanted in the warehouse, so they gave them away. You write your testimony in them and all that noise. Yeah, that. Well, those characters have been translated. And I just discovered this on Wednesday. That's how far behind I am. What I want to do real quick is I want to share with you the, hold on, I should have done this before I got to share my screen real quick. I want to share with you. Oh, come on. Hold on. I'm getting there, I promise. Here we go. All right, let me make sure I've got this shared. Let me make sure I've got this. Okay, I think I do. Nope, it's the wrong one. Oh, for the love of Sam Walton. Here we go. Okay. What is it? Oh, for Pete's sake. Here we go. All right, I'm getting it. Stay calm, everybody. Holy shish kebab. Why is that on that one? That is not the one I want. Hold on. I knew I was going to goof this up. Okay, I've got that one. I want to go to the side. I'm going to share with you how I discovered this. View slideshow. Oh, for Pete's sake. Maybe I'm not going to be able to do this. Hold on. Here we go. Is that one showing? No, it's not. For Pete's sake. Oh, technology just drives me nuts, man. I had a all right, I did that. I swear to goodness I did that. I ran into Ward Radio, and I watched one of their. Okay, that's not the one I want. I want that one. I listened to a podcast on Wednesday. Oh, I can't get it. I have no idea what the hell's wrong with this. What? It's with me. Woohoo! Gosh dang, technologically midgetified. Hey, if nothing else is entertaining. Hang on, let me see if you can hear this. I should be able to view the slideshow. Okay, now here we go. Let's hope this works. Oh. No, that's not it. I can see it, but you can't. That is just okay. Never mind. God, that just drives me crazy, man. All right. Anyway, Ward Radio had this guy on, Jerry Grover, and he's a nice guy. He's a great guy. And he's a geologist, very good one. He's an amateur translator of Chinese, and I can't remember what the other language is. He's been a freelance translator for like 25 years, right? He's been working on some very important public works projects that is really impressive. And he has translated the characters that Joseph Smith copied, and they have to do with the Book of Mormon. Now, the way Ward Radio, that's Carlton, and they used to be the Midnight Mormons, the guys that Radio Free Mormon debated and just absolutely trounced. They didn't think he did, but I did. So anyway, they were all expressing surprise and excitement. Wow, you mean the idiots that claim Reformed Egyptian is really deformed English didn't get it right after all? And in one part of his presentation, he said, I can't believe the church isn't pushing this. And actually, Dr. Lundwall and I have been talking, and that is a red flag to us also. But we'll explore that just a little bit. But tonight I wanted to bring on Dr. Lundwall to share his views of what is going on, how come this man is so unknown. The amazing thing is, he first presented his book and his idea of translating these characters in a fair conference in 2015. And he hasn't published it. It's for free online in a PDF. And he's been on Quick, I believe, the YouTube channel Quick. He has been on Mormonism with the Murph, and he's been on Ward Radio. They actually got him on his program, and he explained his process. So I went to the expert, John Lundwall, whom I'm going to bring on now, and I asked him some ideas for his input on this, and we're going to have a good time just trying to figure out, why is this so iffy, right? So here is Dr. John Lundwall. How are you doing? Boy, after that disastrous introduction, I'm surprised anybody's watching. How you doing, John?
Good to see you, Carrie. That was a bit amusing. So, but here we are.
I had that figured out a half hour ago. I'm not even kidding. I even played it a half hour ago. That just torques my britches. Maybe I should have...
That's okay.
It's all good. It's all good.
It's all good.
All right. So this is what we're talking about. Can I go ahead and show these guys just real quick?
By all means.
This is the characters. Now, tell me about this photo. This is a special photo here.
Yeah, this is the characters document that apparently is translated. Before we get into this, let me just say a few words. To whoever's watching, look, ideally you need an ancient linguist, which I am not, okay, to examine this. But I looked at this in my own process, and I had a podcast with Mormonish on what I did with this document. And you don't have to be an ancient linguist in order to test certain things about these characters in this document. The Mormon verse has been exploding this week. There's that whole thing on the little golden plates.
Yeah.
And, Mormonish asked me to comment on that. And I told them, well, look, I'm not a Bible scholar and I don't read Paleo Hebrew. Ideally, that's who you need, and they'll make quick work of it. But I look at that. I look at this, and, I can tell you where the red flags are for me. So that's what I can do. And while we're at it, the gentleman who introduced that little gold book found in Saudi Arabia to the world is a personal friend of mine, Dave Butler. He's very smart, taught himself biblical Greek, biblical Hebrew.
Oh, wow. A man after my own heart. That's what I'm trying to do.
Incredibly well read. I've spent many evenings at his home having 10-hour conversations, some of the best conversations in my life. And what I learned, you called me and said, hey, have you read the translation by Grover on this character's document? And I said, well, admittedly, I hadn't. And Grover has commented on my series with Mormonish, and but I pulled up his book and I began reading it, and I have to say that guy's pretty smart too. He put enormous amount of work
Oh boy.
into attempting to translate this document, which we'll talk about. And so, critics would say, well, if they're so smart, why are they getting I think they're clearly getting these things wrong. The Gold Book is fake, and I don't think you can translate the Characters document for certain reasons. So I just want to say, smart people does not mean being right. Okay. In fact, there's been several sociological studies where the smarter people are, the more ideologically biased they can be. And it doesn't matter whether you're religious or non-religious, politically left or politically right. It doesn't matter. If you're very smart and you lean politically left, you will articulate all the reasons to be politically left, and vice versa if you're politically right. And so rather than actually solving the problems with each side, they articulate expert reasons to be wrong for each side.
Interesting.
And this is how it works. It's always worked this way. It will always work this way. And you remember being a TBN apologist, Carrie, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you did, right? You created smart reasons to believe in the model without questioning the model. And
good description.
And so the way to check that is very hard. We all have our bias. Everybody has their biases. And the smarter you are, sometimes the more biased you are. So that's the Achilles heel of being smart. So I think Jerry Grover is a very smart guy. And the other thing I learned is I did watch a clip of Word Radio, and he mentioned that he plays Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, you can't. There you have it.
No,
let's get him on this show together and play.
No, wait a second. I played that in high school. I mean, that was 35 years ago. But I challenged Jerry to settle this argument on a D20, on a D&D quest. Of course, I haven't played in 35 years, but I'd be happy to get together with this guy, break bread, have a drink.
Me too.
Roll a 20-sided dice and have a discussion. So
he's a great guy. I got nothing but good vibes.
Well, he's a little at a disadvantage tonight because he's not here on the screen. True. So I'm just going to pull up the Characters document. Yeah.
Let's take a look at these. This is your photograph from the actual piece, isn't it?
Yeah, the church just purchased this document from the Community of Christ Church, and it's now in the Church History Museum.
They bought a lot of stuff from those guys recently, haven't they?
Yeah, they bought the Kirtland Temple and a huge cache of documents.
Did you see my April Fool's joke where they also bought the cathedral over there in Europe? Turn it into a temple? Yeah.
Well, when the church buys the Dome of the Rock, we know it is the second coming.
There it is. I'm just saying. Or else the Chichen Itza temple to restore it properly.
I was just at Chichen Itza.
What I'm looking, where? Yeah, you were
on the Equinox. What I'm looking I was filming the Serpent Shadow, going down it on the spring equinox.
On the equinox, I mean, yeah.
I should have brought some photos to throw up on your screen so your audience could see.
We'll both go next year and we'll make some photos and videos. So, I'm looking forward to the time when the church actually rebuilds the Jerusalem temple for the Jews. Now, that'd be Israel helping Israel, wouldn't it?
There's an interesting little, I don't know if you want to go down this road. There's an interesting little story about Chichen Itza. The guy who, I mean, this is late 1800s, early 1900s. He bought the entire property for like $100 because it was under the jungle and nobody was using it. He went in and he took all these artifacts and he shipped them back to the States. He dredged the cenote at Chichen Itza. And now the government's still trying to get a lot of that stuff back. And a lot of it's at the Peabody Museum. So anyway, the tragedies and farce of history. This document, yeah, that's my photograph of it, and it belonged to the Whitmers, to David Whitmer. The handwriting analysis, for the longest time, it was thought to be written by John Whitmer. This is contemporary then with the publication of the Book of Mormon, and it is supposed to be characters copied off the plates. So, and for a time, it was also thought to be the Anthon transcript. In 1828, Martin Harris took some characters to Charles Anthon, who was a biblical scholar and read Greek and Hebrew.
So was Mitchell, the other gentleman with Anthon.
Yeah.
He was a pretty big wig too.
And anyway, Anthon, I gave a description of what Martin Harris showed him and his response to it, and it's not this. So for a while, people thought this was what Martin Harris showed Charles Anthon, but it's not. So this is its own document. It's got provenance from the Whitmers, and it's supposed to be the characters copied right off the plates. So if you want to hit the next slide.
Sure. Hey, we've got Dan Vogel in the audience tonight, John, and he's saying that
it's Christian Whitmer.
Christian Whitmer, yeah.
Yeah, is that what he's saying? I forgot to say. I thought it was John Whitmer, and then Dan Vogel corrected me and said, hey, that's probably Christian Whitmer.
Yeah.
Anything Dan wants to say about the document, please have him type it in. And
oh, absolutely. Yeah, I was just saying, he's talking right now that he's already made 2 videos of this document, so that'll make nice supplemental watching. I'll encourage all my audience to, after you're done watching this one first, let's keep the priority, people. But yeah, Dan Vogel's here, so he can correct us where we go.
Make sure you put the links of Vogel's videos in your show notes.
I will.
I just watched a Vogel video where he talked about the oasis 3 days outside of Jerusalem. It was brilliant.
Yeah. Don't tell him that, though. We don't want.
No, I won't tell him that.
No, yeah,
it was quite technical.
Everything Vogel makes is worth watching, in my opinion. There's your plug, Vogel. Now I expect to hear the Backyard Professor in one of your new videos. So, tit for tat. Let's go to this. Oh, I should have had this on while you were talking. I apologize.
No, this is a collection of various writings purportedly to be from the gold plate. You have the characters document in the upper left. Maybe Vogel can comment on that upper right document. That's Frederick Williams.
Probably Williams.
His journal. It's on the Joseph Smith papers. Notice how radically different those characters are from the characters on the characters document. And that's interesting. We have the bottom right. That is 2 characters. The left one is Oliver Cowdery. The right one is Frederick Williams. And it's kind of small, but those characters on the bottom have a translation on the top. So,
oh yeah, who wrote that one?
No, actually, this is. I thought I had copied and pasted both Oliver Cowdery and Frederick Williams, but this is just one of them. So I think this is Oliver Cowdery's. Vogel can correct me, but these 2 glyphs here on the bottom, you don't see my mouse.
I don't know.
Yeah, the bottom left 2 glyphs translates as the Book of Mormon. The bottom right 2 glyphs translates as the interpretation of languages.
Oh, I thought it was going to translate as the Book of Pukai.
This is the only Book of Mormon characters we have that come with a translation. Okay. And when I looked at that, I thought this is a real problem. And the reason why I thought it was a real problem is because the proper noun Mormon is represented by a single glyph. And you don't get that in writing systems. Phonetic and syllabic elements of a writing system develop really early when the writing system develops, because you need to be able to sound out certain kinds of words and represent them in your writing system, especially proper nouns, names of people, and foreign words, right? How do you hear a foreign word and you want to write it? How do you do that in a writing system if you don't have symbols that represent sounds?
I use chat for
Chat for GPT.
GPT for.
Well, so when in the grammar, in the Egyptian grammar, all the proper nouns in that are represented by a single symbol. That's just a red flag to me. These are just red flags. And again, I'm not an ancient linguist, but I look at that and I think I would like to see what an ancient linguist would say about that, because I'm sure they would laugh.
Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah. I'll ask anyone in my audience, if any of you know a linguist, we need his services, send him to the BYP.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. The church has linguists.
Oh, of course.
They have an Egyptologist who reads. I don't know if Milstein reads hieratic and demonic, but I'm sure they have them. They have a Mayanologist who reads Mayan. They have Near Eastern scholars who read Hebrew and Akkadian, and so they have the scholars. But I haven't read any. Maybe there's papers out there where they take this stuff and look at it and show how legitimate it is, but I haven't seen any of that.
I haven't either, actually. You bring up a really good point. I also haven't. Now, see, from my understanding, is his beginning into the public sphere was 2015 at the Fair Conference, and since then he's kind of bounced along the bottom of the creek, so to speak, and every now and then he'll bubble up in a popularizer YouTube presentation or something, but I have not heard of anyone else picking this up. And he says that in his introduction. He said, I got it published in 2015, and I went on to other things, which kind of surprised me. I thought, my gosh, this would be one of the singular most unique contributions you could possibly do. Why on earth did you not take this all the way out and run in for the touchdown? But he didn't, and nothing has been done, even from the church's linguist. Hey, you know what? I know Dan McClellan, and I know people in my audience know Dan McClellan. He used to work in the church translation department. I wonder if he knows someone who would take a look at this. Heck, I wonder if he's taken a look at this. That might be interesting.
Right.
Although his specialty is Hebrew. He's a Bible scholar, as you know. So
I just talked to Dan this week. I messaged him and said, "Hey, give me your take on this little gold book." So look, it's the same problem. When I was looking at this little gold book that blew up on the Mormon verse this week out of Saudi Arabia, I don't read Paleo Hebrew, but what I do know is it showed up on a Hebrew Christian version of Ancient Aliens, this podcast that, they do shows on the giant bones of the Nephilim and the location of Noah's Ark and, Bigfoot. So that's a red flag. And then the scholar who was bringing it forth, who is a linguist of modern languages, is currently embroiled in a lot of problems where he's translated ancient languages and the scholars have utterly rejected his work. So, I mean,
these are Zechariah Sitchin you're thinking about?
No, I'm talking about the little gold tablet that was out this week. Dr. Miles Jones. He also goes out in Saudi Arabia and shows people petroglyphs and says, this is the story of Moses. Let's walk the path of Moses. I can tell you that's crap. So
fascinating, isn't it?
So those are the red flags. And so when I see something like this, no disrespect to Jerry Grover at all, but the church hasn't touched this. Right. So I'm seeing it on Ward Radio and Quick Media and Mormonism with the MERP. Not seeing it in published, the BYU Press papers. I'm not seeing it from officially from the
I
church.
haven't read it in Interpreter.
And so that's just a red flag. That tells me they're keeping their hands off of this. So, that's a red flag.
On
So
the other
now
hand,
we know.
On the other hand, John, that approach, and I get it, but that approach can also backfire if they're not too careful, because if it's not valid, but this is so dramatic of a discovery here. You mean this thing that's been laying around and every one of us know what it is? Someone actually really did translate it, and it wasn't the prophet with the seer stone? Or, there's people who are going to think that avenue too, right? But just the idea of someone coming out and saying, hey, I did a natural translation using natural dictionaries, and if they don't stop it, but they don't agree with it, that doesn't give the best impression of the brethren as prophets, seers, and revelators either. Do you know what I mean? That angle is just kind of, this whole thing puts the leaders, based on their claims of who and what they are and what they can do, in kind of a spotlight, and it's probably not a comfortable one, because I heard that the janitor accidentally swept up the seer stone cleaning the church vault.
Like the church has a problem.
I think so.
They still have a painting of a fiery salamander hidden in their basement, and no one's going to let them forget it. so
the thing that astounds me is the responses of the people who actually do have Jerry on their show, and I'd like to get him on my show, but my response isn't going to thrill him. I'm not going to ridicule him, but I'm just not going to sit there and slobber all over myself. Whoa, you mean we can now show the "and it came to pass" glyph? And, Carlton on the radio, Ward Radio, was just thrilled to death. Hey, we can get the Nephites nailed down beautiful, baby. And he was, and the other kid was just laughing his head off. Yeah, now those anti-Mormon critics, they're going to eat crow. But that seems to be the idea here, is that Carlton is not the only one with that response when they hear this.
In the end, this ends up hurting more than it helps.
That's what I'm leading to. Yes. Yeah.
It's going to be shown to be a very faulty methodology. And
I'm afraid so.
I personally, I just think it would be responsible of the church to have them say, all right, let's take our Egyptian and Mayan scholar and write a paper on the Characters document and just lay out, have a gospel topics essay and just lay out what they think. It's a made up script.
Yeah.
So
what? See, even I've got Debbie Donovan in the audience. Hi, Debbie. Good to see you here, dear. It seems the church, well, here, let me put this up, because this is actually an important point. It seems the church is downplaying the Book of Mormon origin story. What do they quote more, Rusty or, Elder President Nelson, or the Book of Mormon? Now, that's a real issue.
The origin story of Mormonism is the Book of Mormon. It's not the first vision.
First
vision was backdated into the origin story a couple years after the publication of the Book of Mormon. All through Joseph Smith's life, the origin story was the Book of Mormon. And through most of church history, I mean, you can't get around it. Here's the deal. If the Book of Mormon is not literal and historical, the church is a fraud, right? If there's no Angel Moroni, then guess what? He lied about everything. There's no Peter, James, and John. There's no John the Baptist. There's no Elijah and Moses. There are no priesthood keys. And for 2 centuries, these men have been extracting time and money from their members off of fraudulent misrepresentations.
Now, John,
Yes.
There is a salamander still.
Painting of a fiery
I'm
salamander.
just saying. Yeah. Hey, Dan Vogel also brought up a good point. Barry Fell was the first to translate.
Is that America BC? Is that what he's
Yeah, I do believe so. Correct us if
Oh
we're
wait, no
wrong.
wait. Did Barry Fell actually translate the characters document?
Is that the context you're talking about, Dan? I haven't read the previous comments, so, but I think that is the comment on the characters plate. Yeah.
Oh man, if Barry Fell translated it, I'm going to go buy that book.
I will too. I had it one time and then I traded it in for some kind of a Hebrew Bible commentary or something. But yeah, that's fascinating, isn't it? So anyway, all right, now we're gonna get to the heart of the story.
All right, let's just move to the next slide.
Oh, and this is the good one. Yeah, this is one of the good ones. This is
so yeah, the bottom left image. There's your characters document, and again, thought to be the Anthon transcript. But here is what Charles Anthon wrote. The upper paragraph is a letter written in 1834, only a couple of years after the publication of the Book of Mormon. And then the bottom green paragraph was an account given in 1841. So let's read these. Can you read those?
Yes, but first I want to show you. Dan Vogel says Barry Fell's translation started with I Nephi.
Oh, really?
Now, dude, I mean, how come the translations are so utterly unlike anything else? That's fascinating.
I can't believe Barry Fell actually translated this. I didn't know that.
I actually did somewhere in the back of my head, but yeah, that's fascinating. Yeah, let me read this real quick.
This is a description of the document Martin Harris gave Charles Anthon to verify that this was an ancient language. So if you'll read that.
Sure. It consisted of all kinds of crooked characters disposed in columns and had evidently been prepared by some person who had before him at the time a book containing various alphabets, Greek and Hebrew letters, crosses and flourishes, Roman letters inverted or placed sideways, were arranged in perpendicular columns, and the whole ended in a rude delineation of a circle divided into various compartments, decked with various strange marks and evidently copied after the Mexican calendar given by Humboldt, but copied in such a way as not to reveal the source from which it was derived, and that was written in a letter in 1834. Now that sounds like the Egyptian hypocephalus, doesn't it?
It sure does. So here is a depiction of the Aztec calendar he was referring to. And, that's the sunstone. But his description obviously is not the characters document, but it does show us something. This is literally Martin Harris is taking this from Joseph Smith, and we get columns of text ending in a rude delineation of a circle divided into various compartments, strange marks, suns, moons, stars. What is that about?
Yeah, and where did that document go?
Yeah, well, that document is gone, along with all the other source materials for the Book of Mormon. There was this big bonfire.
Yeah, they melted down the gold plates so you couldn't check it.
That's right. They melted the gold plates. And they molded them into little fiery salamanders.
So who is this? Who is this describing this in the green below?
It's still Charles Anthon. This is
still
just
Charles Anthon.
What is that? 7 years later, he gives a second account. I'll try.
Oh, it is later. Okay, so here's what he has to say.
Can you read it?
I can read it. Yeah,
read it.
The characters were arranged in columns like the Chinese mode of writing, and presented the most singular medley that I have ever beheld. Greek, Hebrew, and all sorts of letters, more or less distorted, either through unskillfulness or from actual designs, were intermingled with sundry delineations of half moons, stars, and other natural objects, and the whole ended in a rude representation of the Mexican zodiac. Interesting, huh?
Where's Joseph Smith getting that from?
Yeah, where is he getting that from?
So I argued in my Mormonish podcast that this comes from his magic tradition. So the occult tradition. In fact, I should have brought it, but it's in one of my books on the occult in the Middle Ages. But for centuries, everybody believed that one Egyptian character was part of this magical cipher that could produce 1,000 words.
Oh, hey. Troy Levitt. Hey, good to see you, bub. He makes an interesting point. Every time I hear this story, I wonder why Smith didn't just do a rubbing of the plates. That would have been really helpful.
We don't get an we don't get an exact measurement. We don't get a plate count. No one flipped through the plates and just there's 50 plates. There's 10 plates. We didn't get a plate count. We didn't get a rubbing. They're doing this on artifacts, but we don't get anything like that on these gold plates. In fact, most of the time they're underneath a towel, a cloth, behind a curtain, in a box. Don't touch, don't look. Trust me.
Hidden in a barrel of beans.
Barrel of beans.
Huh. How fascinating is that?
Anyway, apparently on the gold plates was a round seal or table with sun, moon, stars, symbols with columns of text. That's what Anthon is describing. Yeah, we don't have that document, so we don't know what Martin Harris showed him. Yeah. But this document we do have, apparently these are copied from the plates.
Yeah. How absolutely fascinating. And like you say, we really don't have any kind of a document in church history with this that fits this description, do we?
No.
Yeah, until we get to the papyri, and we know he didn't have that early because he got that from Chandler.
Nor are we getting the text of the Book of Mormon from the Aztec calendar.
No, we are not. That's a good point.
Red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag.
Well, hold on now. If Grover can maybe... No, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, don't go there.
Don't go there.
This is where we pull out the 20-sided Dungeons and Dragons dice and do that. All right, flip to the next slide.
Oh, crud. Here we go. Okay. Oh, in 1956. Why are you picking 1956?
Oh, because they sent that document to some Egyptologists. This is the one time the church actually went outside the bubble and said, hey, we got this document. What do you make of it?
Right? Oh my goodness! Yeah.
So Alan Gardnier, who was an 8th-year Egyptologist,
absolutely.
He says,
quote, he became Sir Alan Gardner.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
By the way, Carrie, I am Sir John Lundwall.
Whoa, Sir John Lundwall.
No, officially.
Really?
Yeah, I got for Christmas 1 foot square plot of land in Scotland, and if you're a property owner in Scotland, you get the title of Sir or Lord. so it was a Christmas gift. So now I walk around, I wave my hand to people on the streets.
And they wonder, who is this guy?
Move along. All right. Sir Alan Gardnier says, I see no resemblance between the characters in any form of Egyptian writing. So he just
see, by 1956, he had his grammar out. Now, when I was doing research on Nibley's footnote sources in his Improvement Era articles on the New Look at the Pearl of Great Price, I would go down to BYU. Back then, all the sources were in the open stacks. It was glorious. I really wish I'd went and spent 2 or 3 more years down there. I did spend pretty much most of a summer on weekends down there. The librarians just got madder than hell at me because I never would leave the building, and they had to almost turn the lights off and lock me in. I say, yeah, go ahead. I'm not going to steal anything. I'm going to photocopy. But I saw so many of his Egyptology articles. The man was prolific, man. If anybody is a serious Egyptologist, it would have been Alan Gardner, precisely as oh my gosh, how could I forget his name? The Egyptologist that wiped out the whole Mormon establishment.
Oh,
Robert Rittner.
Yeah, Rittner.
Especially just like Robert Rittner. These guys are not, I mean, this is amazing to me that they actually did send this out to actual Egyptologists. That's fascinating.
Well, yeah, I mean, they Rittner did slice and dice.
Oh, he was a one-man demolition crew, man. He absolutely wiped them out. And the interesting thing is, I know this is off topic a little bit, kind of, but to date, so far as I'm aware, and I'll be happy to be shown that I'm wrong, but no Egyptologist has responded to his main book on the complete Joseph Smith papyri step by step along the way. You know, they yell at us for saying, well, I mean, have you read everything we've written to get the full context? Okay, well, have you read everything Robert Rittner has written to get full context? Because they've gone to the strategy of putting his name in some of their footnotes in an article or a book or whatever, but they cannot engage in the actual logistics and the information that he is sharing. He has remained literally unanswered so far as I'm aware. John Gee went off to, after getting so thoroughly thrashed, he went off into doing commentaries on the Doctrine and Covenants or something like that. And Kerry Mulstein has gone off into the book of Isaiah. They've actually just dropped their field of expertise because there's nothing left to say. Hopefully Steve Smoot can come up through the ranks and refute Rittner, but I doubt it. If that latest, most recent BYU studies is any indication, which he did the main work on, they've got nothing. So just throwing that out there. Yeah.
Did Rittner ever look at the Characters document? I mean, it purports to be Reformed Egyptian. I never saw him comment on it. I don't know if he was ever shown it. Maybe Vogel knows if Rittner ever saw it.
I don't know. Yeah.
Look, it's a real problem. Sure enough, the books that I won't go there. It's a real problem.
It is. This is a fascinating account of William Hayes. He says it could conceivably been an inaccurate copy of an Egyptian account or something of the sort written in hieratic script. And with some imagination, the beginning of the inscription could be taken as a date, and many of the other groups look like hieratic numerals. And I do believe Grover took that hint,
yes,
in leading him into his translation, didn't he?
Right. So Grover takes this and he says, let's see if we can make any heads or tails on numbers on these characters in this document. And so he goes through, we'll talk about what he does here in a second. But so Hayes is, look, he's not being rude.
No.
He's like, well, it could conceivably be an inaccurate copy. An inaccurate copy. So he's right there. He's saying, well, it's not really Egyptian, but it might be, right? So there's that.
Well, that's very similar to what absolutely every one of the scholars in the 1912 debacle with the Reverend Spalding said as well when they were given copies of the various facsimiles. And the way Joseph Smith had translated those, they said, well, this is absolutely in his imagination. The translation is. Dan Vogel says he's not aware that Rittner ever did talk about the characters. And I've read quite a bit of Robert Rittner. I actually photocopied off some of his scholarly articles out of several of the Egyptology journals, and I don't think he didn't mention it in his book that I'm aware of. And I've been through his book 3 or 4 times.
I don't remember him ever talking about the characters document. So anyway, then we have John Wilson. He says, one must recognize the words reformed Egyptian being handed down and altered by us according to our manner of speech. He's quoting the Book of Mormon. Could be used to remove this context from the professional analysis of the Egyptologist. So he's saying we can't really say anything about it. However, Wilson also says, it's not on the slide, but I'll read it. Quote, this is not Egyptian writing as known to the Egyptologists. It is obviously not hieroglyphic, nor the cursive hieroglyphic as used in the Book of the Dead. It is not Coptic, which took over Greek characters to write Egyptian, nor does it belong to one of the cursive stages of ancient Egyptian writing, hieratic, abnormal hieratic, or demotic, end quote. So
can I ask you a devil's advocate question here?
Yeah.
I'll put my apologist hat on. John Wilson, wasn't he one of the gentlemen that originally translated the papyri and published it in the Dialogue of Journal of Mormon Thought? Yes, he was. However, Brother Grover has very carefully and explicitly shown every one of the characters out of legitimate Egyptian dictionaries from the hieratic and a few of them from the demotic. In fact, he even sprinkles a little bit of Mesoamerican writing with the numbers and stuff in this translation effort, but utilizing legitimate. And he does mention Budge, his dictionary, which I had at one time, but I traded that off. But so the devil's advocate question is, okay, so Brother Grover has truly legitimately thumbed through the standard, the Faulkner dictionary and some of the real serious Egyptological dictionaries, finding the same figures, much like Ariel Crowley did in the 1940s, although he did use the Proto-Sinaitic script more than the Egyptological hieratic. But so John Wilson says, well, none of this matches hieratic, and yet Grover doesn't just say he found the match, he shows the pictures and comparisons. So in a way, does that tell us John Wilson was just too hasty, or well, that's the devil's advocate coming
This is 1956. It's dated. However,
sure.
I think that Grover's methodology is deeply flawed. You have to do a couple lines of suppositions and speculations to do what he does. So ultimately, in fact, if you want to just hit the next slide, I think.
Sure.
Oh, no, this is one more analysis.
Oh, one more, yeah. Oh, and that's 2001. Okay,
2001, and I think this was a LDS person. Wade Brown attempted analysis of the characters document using a comparison of glyph order and frequencies to the existing Book of Mormon text. So he looked at the characters document in any repeating glyph. He then compared and said, if there's a repeating word that sort of parallels this kind of spacing, then we might have a match. He was unable to find any matches. Well, of course he was.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. And that's
he also proposed that certain frequent glyphs must represent common words found in the Book of Mormon, such as the dashes or spacer glyphs are the word and that the certain parallel repeating glyphs must represent word pairs. This approach is not consistent with the actual translation and did not contain information of value for this translation. So Grover's just going. I keep blipping out because I do that on StreamYard for some reason.
It's
Grover's just going through what has been done with this document, and I think that was the last serious attempt, other than what he's doing. Again, the church hasn't touched the document, and the church has not touched Grover's translation of the document. and
No.
the scholars of the church have not touched
I
either the document or Grover's translation of the document. So
right.
that's just my first red flag as far as the translation is concerned. Is
Entirely agree.
we're not, I'm watching this on Ward Radio in Quick Media, and I'm not reading this out of the University Press of BYU in their ancient studies department.
Precisely. It's like I told you earlier when we were putting this thing together. As much as I disagree with him, and as much as I think he's a nuanced apologist and a very capable scholar, I'm not taking that away from him. But Terrell Givens, now you have to understand, this gentleman, this brother, is also defending Joseph Smith in his writings, and I mean he is showing the pros and cons of the different translation capabilities of Smith, and with his theological adumbrations with which he produced via the revelation from the Elohim or the seer stone, etc. But even Terrell Givens is writing book after book after book after book after book after book after book, and he's being published in Oxford University Press. And so I have to ask, why isn't Grover doing this as well? That's just one of my small amateur beefs with it all.
I don't care where the book is published from. I mean, look, so
well, I do, because my history professor kind of nudged me that way when I got my bachelor's in history. He said, you can't just go pull off every damn book in the shelf for 4 aisles and quote it to me, Kerry. You have to have quality books. So,
well, if you purport to translate an ancient document in this kind of context, then you do need peer review. So that's what's going to help this. And so you need peer review from, I don't know who would peer review it, but ostensibly from Egyptologists who read Demotic and Hieratic, because Grover is arguing that 95% of the glyphs are Demotic or Hieratic.
Well, John Gee told me in his office years ago, when I used to go over to talk to the farms people all the time, that he actually taught Demotic at BYU, but he knows Hieratic. I would be very interested in seeing John Gee and Kerry Mulstein's thoughts on this. Excuse me, I'm glitching.
Well, notice that
if they could.
I haven't seen Gee or Mulstein on any podcast talking about the Characters document.
I didn't either.
I haven't seen anyone talk about the Characters document.
I just found this on Wednesday, and he's been around only since 2015. So yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. What is going on?
All right, next slide.
Yes, sir. And I heartily second this comment from our good friend Dan Vogel. When the experts recognize Grover's translation, I might be interested, sincerely, and for a very important reason, because like they've said, Barry Fell was the first to translate it. Others have tried to, show, and if it came out as I Nephi, etc. I mean, the experts didn't even agree with that expert. So why are they not being given Grover's translation to look at either? Okay, translating a script. What do you got here?
This is a quote from Michael Coe. So he's saying, look, if
is he valid?
Is he valid? He, one of the premier A-list, I mean, it's the late Michael Coe, Mayanologist, and he resoundingly rejected the historicity of the Book of Mormon. There's nothing in Mesoamerica that looks anything like what is described in the Book of Mormon. So there's another resounding rejection from the informed experts.
It just doesn't get any more solid than that. I'd like that.
No,
sincerely.
It does.
You want me to read this, or is that?
Yeah, I can read it. He just lists 5 things. If you have a foreign script and you want to start trying to crack it, you need these 5 things. So do you want to read it?
Yeah, the database, number 1, the database must be large enough with many texts of adequate length. Well, I mean, the characters thing has several lines, John. What more do you want?
So there's about 220 symbols on that document. Many of them are repeats. Some of them are the same symbol, but they're rotated, or they're inverse, or it's the same symbol with a dot, and then the same symbol without the dot. So, you know, technically those are separate graphemes, separate symbols. So we have a collection of about 220. Less than 100 are unique. So there's, you know, there's that many repetitions on that document. We also have the Williams document. That's another, I don't know, 50 symbols or so. You know, so we have 270 around that number of purported symbols off the plates, and 120, or actually the Williams document, and most of that is not repeatable. So what is that, 140 unique symbols?
About that, yeah. Not much of a comparison, huh?
So that's not a big database. It does tell you something, though. If this is a legitimate language and a legitimate writing system, it tells you you're dealing with a logographic system.
And he does say that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So so you're not dealing with an alphabet. You're not dealing with an abjad.
No.
You're not dealing with a syllabary. You got too many symbols for those kind of writing systems, which means that your writing system has symbols for words, and logographic writing systems like Mayan, like ancient Egyptian, you know, they have hundreds of symbols in their lexicon, 800-900 symbols. But they don't have, you know, well, Chinese has thousands of symbols in its lexicon. That's why Chinese is so hard to learn. And
5,000 last I checked.
Yeah, it's over 5,000.
That's a lot.
So it makes it inhibitive to actually learn the writing system. So yeah, we've got 140 different symbols if we count all those documents and say they are symbols off the gold plates, which means it's a logographic system. Why is Nephi writing in a logographic cursive system if he's Hebrew? I guess they're Egyptian, and I guess they're writing in code.
Yeah, right. All right.
So number 2.
The language must be known, or at least reconstructed at a minimum. The linguistic family to which the language of the script belongs should be known.
All right. So what language family is this character doctor's document coming from?
The Smith family. Definitely. Well, you asked.
That's funny. If it's a legitimate writing system, remember the Book of Mormon says the language of the Jews. Oh, good grief! What's the exact?
The learning of the Jews in the language of the Egyptians.
Yeah, that's it. Learning of the Jews with the language of the Egyptians.
Right.
You know, so what's that mean? Does that mean the writing system is Egyptian, but the language itself is Hebrew?
Yeah, they've argued about that in the past. Nibley took a certain stance, and Sperry took a different one. And yeah.
Here's my argument. You can make fun of me, but it has to be Hebrew, which means those characters, if they're written in Egyptian, they have to write a Hebrew language.
Oh, that might
the
be
reason why I say it has to be Hebrew is because when you read the Book of Mormon, the proper nouns.
Hebraisms. It has Hebraisms and chiasmus.
That's right. That's right. Besides all the Hebraisms and chiasmus through the whole text, the proper nouns, the names of the prophets, the judges, the generals, the leaders, 80% of them are Hebrew. Okay. Now look, the leaders of your culture, their names represent the language of your culture. The lingua franca of the Book of Mormon is Hebrew, right? So in America, name some presidents just off the top of your head. We got
George
Joe,
Washington,
George,
Abraham Lincoln,
Bill, Jimmy.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Unfortunately, Donald.
Donald. Barack is the outlier.
Barack is the outlier.
Outlier, but
Richard.
every other name is an English name because that represents the lingua franca of the lingua franca of the culture. So the names in the Book of Mormon identify the cultural language being used by the society in the Book of Mormon, and that's the language that's going to be written down on the plates. So it can be written in an Egyptian writing system, but the language it's writing is going to be Hebrew. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. And I believe that was Sperry's argument, if I remember because Nibley took the opposite tack because he was really cool. He was really excited because William F. Albright found that Paanki and Pahoran were two authentic Egyptian names. And so Nibley said, well, the underlying language is going to be the Egyptian.
Yeah.
The
underlying language has got to be Hebrew. I mean,
yeah.
the language they're speaking and reading and writing in is Hebrew.
Right.
The writing system could be Reformed Egyptian. That's my argument. If Nibley's arguing we do get Egyptian names in the Book of Mormon.
Sure.
Sam is an Egyptian name.
And it came to pass is an Egyptian word, according to Nibley in his book, Since Cumorah. And who was it? Christensen. He found and it came to pass in one of the Mayan glyphs. So there you have it, a double out of the mouth of two witnesses or two hieroglyphics shall all truth be established. Isn't that the proper translation?
We also get a couple Greek names in the Book of Mormon.
Laconius and Timothy.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Where are they coming from?
Greece. Well, I mean, they were traveling.
Well, sure enough.
They were traveling the seven seas.
Sure enough. We had a Gilligan's Island 3-hour tour by the Greeks that happened in the Americas.
Well, that's what America was, the Gilligan's Island of the ancient world. Oh, my.
That's right.
That's too good. All right, number 3.
Are we taking too much time? Are we having too much fun?
We're having way too much fun. I love it. There should be a bilingual inscription of some sort, one member of which is in a known writing. Yeah, that would be nice. A known writing system. Number 4.
Look, we do not have number 1. We do not have number 3. And people are arguing about number 2. So this already is making translating this document really hard. All right, number 4.
Yeah, but Joseph had the stone.
Yeah, sure enough.
Okay, number 4, the cultural context of the script should be known. Above all, there should be traditions and histories giving place names, royal names, and titles, and so forth. You want me to read number 5 too?
Yeah. What is the cultural context of the Book of Mormon?
New York.
What?
New York in Joseph Smith's day. No, the cultural context that it claims is the ancient Hebrew. It came from Jerusalem. They brought the brass plates, that we talked about last time I had you on the show that was impossible to have. But so their cultural context is the ancient Near East. That's why Nibley.
Yeah. How do you maintain an ancient Near Eastern culture for 1,000 years in the New World and leave no trace of it?
Come on, John. They sent carrier pigeons. They rode tapirs. The tapirs swam across the ocean.
carrier pigeons. What?
Sorry, I'm trying to be serious. I really am.
The Scripture Central is doing a series. Have you watched it? The marvelous work, the greatness of the evidence. And they're flying around and they're saying the Book of Mormon could be in Bolivia, it could be in Guatemala, it could be in Tennessee. And, you know, if you're jumping from South America, Central America, North America, you have no cultural context.
No,
Zero.
you do not, because that's
Zero.
not a uniform culture there.
No, not at all. So the bottom line is, whatever the cultural context is of the Book of Mormon, you've got to find that somewhere in a location in the archaeology. All they have is a text that is deeply biblical. And this is the problem. And this is what I said last time on your. The more biblical the Book of Mormon is, the less historical it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's an insurmountable problem.
Yep. That is so
All
interesting.
right, number 5.
For logographic scripts, there should be pictorial references, either pictures to accompany the text or pictorially derived logographic signs. And before you say it, let me give the game away. You are a scholar of the glyphs on the rocks in southern Utah, and those translate beginning I Nephi, right?
Well, there are people that do that.
I know. That's why I'm making fun of it.
Yeah,
it's a good
there are people that go and look at the petroglyphs and say, "Oh, that's the story of Jesus," or "Oh, there's the Jaredites."
Yeah. There they went. They went to Manti, Utah. Yeah.
No, you know, here's a copy of the Mayan Dresden Codex, and you can see. I don't know. Can you?
Oh,
see
yeah.
that?
Yep.
You can see the text is accompanied with pictures.
Lots of them. Yes.
Right? Yes. How often does that happen with the Egyptian?
The entire hieroglyphic system, pictures.
Yeah, well, right. And then there's pictorial tableaus with the text. So very often that's what you're getting with logographic systems is pictures and text. And so that would tell us that the Book of Mormon should have pictures in it and text. If they're writing in this, you know, you could say that it's just cursive demotic, and that's what they're doing. Fair enough. But those are the 5 things that Michael Coe says.
Well,
that, yeah.
The problem with having pictures with the text is it takes away the apologetic fun of saying horses were tapirs. So, you know.
Well, the characters that Charles Anthon showed did have pictures, had a table, had a magical circle and stars and suns and moons.
Yeah.
And
good point. Yeah, see, we're bamboozled somewhere, John. Man, I'm feeling it.
All right. Well, look, so we don't really have those things. And so what do we do? Well, we don't have to read this paragraph.
Pay your tithing.
Pay your tithing. So what Grover does is go to the next slide.
Whoop.
He goes through all the symbols on the characters document, and he shows that 5% of them come from Mesoamerican, Sumerian, or other. 82% come from Egyptian. This is hieratic and demotic. And 5% come from Egyptian, but pretty early, like centuries before Lehi, and late Egyptian 8%, as in centuries after Lehi. So he is thorough. So here's what he does. He goes through basically the lexicons of Egyptian and Mayan, and he compares every glyph on the characters document to the various glyphs of hieratic and demotic Egyptian, of Mayan. And so that's the first thing he does. The second thing he does is if there is a match or close match, because sometimes they're like, well, I could get this symbol out of this glyph, so it's probably a match. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, here's the problem. One, every language has its own rules, its own orthography, its own syntax. And if I am writing I mean, look, we are told in Moroni that the language has been changed by the Nephites, that the writing system has been altered by the Nephites, right? So by the time this gets written down by Mormon and Moroni at the end of the Nephite civilization, we are probably looking at a completely altered text. 1,000 years later, your language has evolved. Here we are, 2024.
Right.
How is our language different than the language Joseph Smith was using in 1830?
Yeah, and I guarantee you 1,000 years earlier, like similar to the Book of Mormon time,
Right.
that ain't no way you're going to read and understand, let alone speak Old English either.
That's correct. So
You
1,000
won't.
AD, what did English look like? And
Yeah.
how was it written? Radically different than what we've got. So the writing of Lehi in 600 BCE is not going to be the writing of Mormon and Moroni at 400 AD. And so Grover then starts by saying, I'm going to compare these characters to hieratic and demotic Egyptian. That's a huge supposition.
Oh, yes,
That's a huge leap.
And the reason why, too, is this bottom part, the lingua franca of the Book of Mormon, is actually Hebrew, because you can see it in the proper names of kings, generals, and leaders.
Yeah, again, you can write Hebrew in an Egyptian script, but 1,000 years later, your script is not going to be the same as it was 1,000 years earlier. Your language is not going to be the same as it was 1,000 years earlier. So all I'm saying is his methodology is to take each character, open a dictionary or a lexicon of Mayan or Egyptian, compare the two, and if they're a match or a close match, well, what's a close match? Because they get altered. And so that also is an interpretive move. So you've just got several layers of interpretive moves that are not justified. So I don't, as far as I'm concerned, I'm done. I've stopped. This doesn't work for me.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show. See you all later. Hold it, John. We've got a couple more slides. Calm down. No, that's well taken. Yeah, that is a full stop. The way you express that, that's why I wanted you on my show, because I couldn't have possibly said it that well. But yeah, very interesting. When you now, so far as I'm aware, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody who has had this gentleman on their show at all. I promise I'm not. But so far as I saw, and I watched several of the YouTube videos, when I discovered this Wednesday on my lunch hour, I had to do quite a bit of driving at work. I didn't get to watch the videos, but I listened to them while I was driving. No, I did not have it in my hand. I've been pulled over by a cop. And it was interesting because I was listening to John DeLyn's Mormon stories. I had it up my ear and the cop came up. He said, "Get that phone out of your hand. You cannot hold that phone. I don't want to see you holding it driving. I don't want to see you holding it while you're parked or stopped at a red light, etc. Keep the..." So anyway, long story short, I don't think any of them have assessed these types of implications. And that's why we all, I think I can speak for my audience, so greatly appreciate you coming on the show. By the way, he did come on the show, and he has Dr. Lundwall has a very pressing schedule. So be grateful you showed up and listened to this, because you're not going to get it anywhere else except on Mormonish. And they're awesome. So, okay, so let's, here we go. Now explain this to us.
So here are characters off the character document. Look, Jerry is very thorough. And quite frankly, it's quite smart. What he does is he goes through and he looks at all the symbols, and then he looks at all the numbers of Egyptian, and he compares the two, and he sorts out the symbols that represent numbers. Again, this is a series of suppositions that I don't think you can make. Right. But here he has, this top one, C63, 62, 61, that's character symbol 63, 62, 61. And he then compares them to a lexicon of Egyptian and anything that's a close match. He says, oh, that L-looking symbol represents king, because that's what the Egyptian cursive is for it. And that swirly symbol represents Mosiah. Now, he does his names like he did Mulek. I can't remember, something about a fish, and the symbol represented a fish, and so he said that's got to be the name Mulek. But here's the problem, once again, is I just wrote all these down. All the proper nouns in his translation have a single symbol. Messiah is a swirly 2. Lehi is a Y. Jerusalem is a circle. Gadiaton is a whatever that is.
So why is that problematic, though?
Yeah, again, you don't get single symbols for proper names. If everyone in your society had their own symbol for their name, how many symbols would you need?
Oh, billions. Oh, it'd be endless, wouldn't it?
You would need.
Oh,
you need 1 million symbols. That's right. If everyone in the phone book gets their own symbol in a writing system, who's going to remember it? No one. No one. This is why you need phonetic and syllabic elements in your writing system to spell the names out. So, again, you can have like surnames be single symbols. Michael Baker. Well, if you're a baker, you can have a single symbol saying that you're a baker, but Michael's going to be spelled out. Robert Miller. You have a single symbol saying that you're a Miller, but Robert's going to be spelled out, right? So you can have single symbol surnames, but you're not going to have all of your proper nouns be single symbols. And also, basically, he's making all these symbols their own word. And in logographic systems, yes, there are hundreds of symbols that represent words, but there's a core group of symbols that represent sounds, syllables, and that is what is repeatedly used. So we should be getting repeated syllabic units in these symbols, meaning that and meaning that I mean, ultimately we're going to go to his translation, and basically his translation of the characters document is about 3 words per symbol. And in reality, you should probably have 3 symbols per word. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, he's got backwards.
Right. We need.
Okay, so say that again. We should be having. He has 3 symbols.
3 words per symbol.
3 words per symbol, but
in his translation,
symbols per word.
And you know, all your proper nouns should be syllabic units, right? So Messiah should be 2, could be 3 symbols. Lehi 2 symbols. Jerusalem 3 symbols. Gadiaton, right? I mean, depending on the language. Again, the underlying language should be Hebrew. And so Jesus Christ, Mormon, Moroni, all those names, the 3 disciples, all those names should be spelled out, and they're going to be 2, 3, 4 symbols long. That's what you would expect to find.
Boy, that's an important point.
And
he does this consistently. He does this consistently with all the names that he translates on that character sheet. Huh?
As far as I can tell, yes.
Oh, wow. That's a serious flaw then. Oh, how interesting. Now, see, I would have never thought of that, John. That is really interesting. Yeah.
Well, so it is a problem.
Seems to be.
The other thing that he notes, and this is a point Grover and I have argued about actually in the, well, he's argued about it in the the comments of the Mormonish podcast, but He writes, it is known if the upper or lower characters reflect the size of the characters from the gold. It is not known if the upper or lower characters reflect the size of the characters from the gold plates. However, it is noteworthy that the spacing as a relation to size of characters relatively consistent through the whole document, which would seem to indicate that the character spacing as a percent of character size was reflective of the engraved characters on the golden plates. So he's saying, and I think it's a good observation, that there's a consistent spacing between all the characters, larger spacing for the larger characters, smaller spacing for the smaller characters, but consistent in relationship to them. And that should reflect what you actually saw on the plates. And I'm comparing this to this document that was made in the 1900s by a Mormon scholar, Jan Sodal, that I misgendered, but where they tried to put the text of the Book of Mormon in Hebrew as you know, I can't remember. It was on I can't remember how many pages now, but the pages, it was about 40 pages, and those letters are really small. I mean,
Yeah.
less than a millimeter. They're a millimeter
To
tall.
imagine them inscribing that in metal, just
You would never inscribe that in metal. If
No.
you're inscribing it in metal, you're looking probably at these larger characters up here.
Absolutely.
But then
I have tried inscribing in metal, trying to imitate Nephi. I was going to write my life history once on plates, not gold plates. I wasn't that rich, but I started trying to do it so I could hide it in the backyard, and then someday return to some poor sucker that found it. And,
well, this brings us to textual density. How do you get 330,000 plus or minus a few thousand words of Book of Mormon text on gold plates? And this is where I think this is a death blow. I mean, all of this argues against the historicity of the Book of Mormon, but because Grover believes in it, he's using his intelligence to make an argument for it. Fair enough. So he says there could have been 300 to 600 Tumbaga plates in the plate stack of the gold plates.
300 to 600.
Yes.
No one ever described that many that Joseph.
Yeah, no, he argues in this book that the plates were 1/10 of a millimeter thick. And he drives that by saying you can get the surface area of a Tumbaga plate to be extremely hard, and so you can engrave on both sides. It doesn't matter how thick it is. You just need the tensile strength of the surface area to be sufficient. And he tested it apparently somewhere in a lab and said, yeah, we can get them this thin. This, of course,
we can, but
you're right. This is utterly irrelevant.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course you can do that. And so what? That has nothing to do with anything.
We can drive 70 miles an hour down the interstate without riding the curulum too. So
look, I have to say, again, the translation of these characters is irrelevant until you show me the characters in the archaeological strata. You show me these characters carved on stone, wood, clay, textile, bone, murals, stelas. Show me that, I'll show up. You
now that is what Bill Hamblin could not do with Philip Jenkins either. In their magnificent online debate, Jenkins presented the same argument. Yes, you got to have a grounded reality first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have all these red flags, which I've been going over, but the bottom line is all of this is irrelevant until you show me where this is at in the archaeology. Okay. And his argument that you could have 300 Tumbaga plates. I'm great that you made that in a modern lab. You have to show me that in the archaeological record. And by the way, you can't even show writing on Tumbaga, let alone writing on Tumbaga plates, let alone a manufacturing ecosystem that created you know, your metalworking, your alphabets, your workshops, your slag, right?
Slag heaps, yeah.
Yeah,
When I had Barry Richens on, he mentioned that. He's quite a scholar of that type of stuff.
there's this whole ecosystem that would serve. I mean, you'd get a fingerprint of it.
Yes, absolutely.
And until you show me that fingerprint, this really is a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Hey, easy.
No, I like that.
Now you're almost close to blasphemy there.
No, I haven't gone off on the brethren, so I'm doing quite well.
Yes, you are. I'm impressed. That's my job, not yours.
Okay. Anyway, that's my final argument. These last two slides are just his translation. It's his translation of these characters, and yeah, it's pretty stunning. I mean, there's 2 paragraphs. This is the first one, so that there is the first.
Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but based on what you said earlier here now, I can see lots of proper. Now there's Mosiah and there's Mulek and Mosiah, Zarahemla, Land of Desolation, the Limhites, Zenith, the Jaredite place, the Limhites again, Benjamin, so Limhites again. There probably should be more characters based on, if nothing else, so many proper nouns in just this. He actually said in his book that this is somewhat like the introduction to this section on the plates, kind of like an overview of that section, and it should have been in front of Mosiah because that's what was lost in the 116 plates, you know.
Yeah,
but that's interesting. The disparity now, because of what you said, the disparity here appears to me. Yeah, you see, you've got the River Sidon, all that. And I can't believe in parenthesis they actually put on these plates Grijalva River. Oh, no, wait, that's the translator.
That's the translation.
Yeah, I'm being a smart aleck on that one.
I think that river runs the wrong direction, too.
It does, and it's not deep enough. Interesting.
But the... yeah, look, I mean, the translation is quite astonishing.
It is, especially when it should have been I Nephi up there in that top left.
Well, I mean, he makes a good argument that this is being copied from like the first part of Mosiah.
Right.
So
yeah.
It's
not really anything in the Book of Mormon as such. Yeah.
Well, it's part of the lost 116 pages.
Yeah, right.
So fair enough. I mean, again, we're arguing from the absence of evidence.
And isn't that the apologetic way? Boy.
Constantly.
Non-stop.
We are nonstop arguing from the absence of evidence.
Well, we don't have it all, and we're making new discoveries. I mean, this was my argument as an apologist. And so it's valid to have faith that sometime we'll have that. In the meantime, believe anyway, and you'll be blessed of the Lord. And that's the spiel, right? But Bayes' theorem comes along and it says, oh, you can take that approach, but based on what evidence we actually have and how we can interpret that evidence, we are entirely justified in saying, no, I don't believe it, unless further evidence comes forward. And there's no way that can be a sin or evil like the church would want you to think so, because we're justified by the lack of evidence to have a lack of belief. I mean, look, love him or hate him, that was one of the glorious things that Richard Carrier taught me in his book, Proving History. And I get it. There's scholars who hate his guts and think he's a complete rank amateur. But because of his presentation of Bayes' theorem in Proving History, I was able to then look further in other scholarly materials and articles and mathematicians and come to an understanding of it. And it is the argument from the lack of evidence that Bayes' theorem solves. And I'm very grateful for that, because I argued from the lack of it, just like Bill Hamblin did with Phil Jenkins, just like Daniel Peterson does against the Shades message board, and on and on and on. So, all right, cool.
You heard my argument last time I was on your show that You'll never find the Nephites or the Lamanites. You can't go digging in strata that's 1,000 years old and dig up a space rocket or a iPhone because that's completely out of time and place. And the civilization described in the Book of Mormon, fully literate, fully monotheistic, that is completely
fully technologically savvy with metal.
Yes, metallurgy. That is completely out of time and place of all pre-Columbian cultures in the Americas. Everywhere you go, you'll never find them.
And the Heartlanders also probably don't have a leg to stand on because it's nowhere in North America either.
In all the Americas.
Yeah. Well, you said Mesoamerica, so.
Yeah, no, South America, Central America, North America, Antarctica, the Arctic, Easter Island. You'll never find them.
Yeah.
And so look, what is the object of the brethren of the church? What are they after? Are they after objective truth? If they're after objective truth, what do they do with the Characters document? What do they do with the massive, howling zero evidence for the Book of Mormon? If they're not after objective truth, then are they prophets? Right? This is a real problem. If you're not after objective truth, what is your goal? I can tell you they're not interested in objective truth. They're interested in objective obedience. That's what that's what they're interested in.
I think you've done it.
And that is a resounding rejection of their moral authority. So, but in the end, look, there are a lot of people, I know lots of them that are believers, and the Book of Mormon inspires them. And, like Grover, he wants to try to put some legs under this. And
yeah. Well, because the church won't. That's actually one of the points that Carlton made right at the beginning of that video. Is he said, I can't believe the church isn't taking this and doing something with it and running. I mean, this is testimony building stuff. The church should be putting it out there. And we hear nothing anywhere about it, except at, like you say, a few odd podcasts on YouTube, maybe a fair conference or whatever. And no one has actually followed up since then either. And I'm not about to spend the time it's
going to. How many of the Quorum of the 12, the Q15 and the Quorums of the 70, how many of those people do you think know the Book of Mormon is not historical?
Oh, they all do. The reason I know that, yeah, they all do.
You think they all do?
Absolutely.
No, I wouldn't even go that far.
I don't think any of them believe it. And here's why. Because Bill Hamblin was told by the BYU Board of Directors, who are the Quorum of the 12, 6 or 7 of them. Maybe I did overstep that a little bit, but I know at least 6 or 7 of them. If they don't believe it's historical, they dang sure don't want you to even worry about doing any research in that direction. They told Bill Hamblin, hey, we're not only not giving you extra credit for doing your apologetic information, you're not even going to get paid for it. We don't want you to analyze the Book of Mormon as an ancient document. Forget about that. We want to build faith. And Bill Hamblin protested vehemently on his blog. Now, when I read that blog, I had crossed the border into the truth finders instead of the brainwashed. And I told everybody that I knew online, I was saying, do you have any idea what Cat Hamblin has let out of the bag here? Because if the brethren, the at least half of the quorum of the 12, 6 of the 12, I do believe, are on the BYU board of directors. If they don't want their professors actually trying to find authenticity in an ancient world for the Book of Mormon to give it a credible reality, then they can't possibly believe that. And by saying so, I told everybody, if I was still an apologist, I would get in my car right now. I would drive down there. I would knock on Bill's front door and I would say, what in the hell are you doing, dude? Take that off your blog. Because it's only establishing the authenticity of the Book of Mormon that the Holy Spirit's going to tell you is true. I mean, that's the apologetic mindset. It still is in so many of them, right? But yeah, so I have trouble look, they all sustained themselves 2 conferences ago, and every damn one of them know they're nothing but flipping, thieving, lying crooks, and they'll lie to us, to the non-members, to the members. They will lie to the government about what they're doing with money or about testimony or about reality. They will hide how much real estate they are purchasing, etc. The truth, when you get to the $100 billion mark, and it won't surprise me if they cross the 200 or 300 billion mark within my lifetime, which is I'm over halfway done, unless I get lucky and live as long as my mom to 197. But they don't have to tell anybody the truth. They are above the law, because when you get to the $100 billion mark, boy, I'm on a diatribe, aren't I? Truth doesn't matter. Truth is irrelevant to you. Who cares? We've got it made here. That's what matters. And that's how they act. And it's so unfortunate. I'm not crowing a victory dance or dancing a victory dance and crowing a victory song, but that's what I see. And every one of them sustained them. Each other, and they all know that they are not doing legal things. So there you have it. What are they after? They put all that money in the stock market. They learn to get huge amounts of wealth. And Nibley showed them time and again that the Book of Mormon has 2 items that it repeats over 500 times. Now, that means an average of once a page. And no, it's not the name of Jesus Christ. It's the wicked will seek power and gain. And what are the 2 items they seek? Boy, that's almost like a sermon. Dang, they should have put me on general conference stand today. Woohoo! Anyway, that's my...
All right. Boom.
Okay.
Good place to end it.
Someone's got to say it. I will. John, this has been incredibly interesting. Thank you so much. Do you have anything you'd like to say? I kind of stole the thunder of the wrap up.
No thunder. I'm hoping we don't get thunder tomorrow. I'm actually flying out to go see the eclipse. So most of North America is covered in clouds. So
it is too. Where are you going?
Indiana.
Indiana, yeah.
There's a patch in the Midwest where it's cloud free. So that's where I'm going.
for about 15 minutes. Hopefully it'll coordinate with the eclipse.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, thank you once again for being on the show. We've gone about an hour and 40 minutes. That's just about right. Looks like the audience has enjoyed it. So we're all going to scoot over there to Mormon News Roundup if he's on. And appreciate all your insight and your knowledge. And let's get back together again on the show. And we'll talk some more about whatever else interesting comes up and have a good time. Be safe going to Indiana and have a good evening, everybody. We're going to head the heck out of here, and you guys all have a good night also. And we will catch you in the next show. In the meantime, remember something or other. I'm too old. I forgot.
Good night, all.